Walking into the Summit Plaza lobby, I savored the irony of the moment. My ex-husband, Mitchell, was about to sign his company's biggest lease extension yet, with me. Though he didn't know it, the same man who left me for his secretary and claimed I'd never amount to more than a housewife was about to discover that I now owned the very building his company called home. As he strode into the conference room, his new wife, Ashley, trailing behind him, I suppressed a smile. The property acquisition papers in my briefcase were about to change everything. The marble floors of Summit Plaza echoed under my heels as I made my way to the executive conference room. 3 years had transformed me from Allison Parker, the naive housewife Mitchell had discarded, into Allison Reynolds, CEO of Vertex Properties, one of the city's fastest-growing commercial real estate firms. Most tenants knew me only by reputation or through intermediaries, a strategy that had served me well, especially for this moment. Through the glass walls, I watched Mitchell adjust his designer tie, probably rehearsing his speech about his company's tremendous growth and why they deserved preferential lease terms. He hadn't changed a bit. Same arrogant posture, same way of commanding attention, same habit of keeping Ashley, his former secretary, 2 steps behind him. The conference room door opened smoothly under my touch. "Good morning," I said, watching Mitchell's eyes sweep over me without recognition. 3 years, a complete style transformation, and his own self-absorption worked in my favor. "I'm representing Vertex Properties today," Mitchell huffed, checking his Rolex. "We expected the owner. I specifically requested—" "I apologize for any confusion," I interrupted smoothly, setting my briefcase on the polished table. "I assure you, I have full authority to handle this negotiation." Ashley shifted uncomfortably in her seat, perhaps picking up on something in my voice that Mitchell, in his arrogance, completely missed. The room filled with the soft sounds of papers being arranged as our respective teams settled in. Ryan, my chief legal counsel, sat to my right, while Logan, my operations director, took the seat to my left. Both had been instrumental in the confidential acquisition of Summit Plaza 3 months ago. Both knew exactly who Mitchell was. Their presence was both support and witness to what was about to unfold. "Let's begin," Mitchell announced, rather than asked, launching into his rehearsed speech about market positions and corporate growth. I let him talk, studying the man who had once been the center of my world. 10 years of marriage had ended with a text message. A text message, of all things, while I was visiting my sick mother. "Things have changed," he'd written. "Ashley understands my vision. You never did. The divorce papers are being delivered tomorrow. That was the moment that had broken me, and then rebuilt me into something stronger." While Mitchell flaunted his new relationship all over social media, I quietly enrolled in real estate finance courses. While he bragged about his company's expansion, I learned the intricacies of commercial property acquisition. While he built his business empire within these walls, I was building something far more substantial. "Which is why we're prepared to sign a 10-year lease extension," Mitchell concluded, sliding a proposal across the table. "Of course, we'll need significant concessions, given our status as the building's anchor tenant." I picked up the proposal, skimming terms I'd already memorized. "Interesting," I said, letting the word hang in the air. "But I'm afraid these terms won't work for us." I reached into my briefcase, extracting a different document. "We have a counter-proposal." Mitchell's face darkened. "Counter-proposal? Do you have any idea who I am? Who Sterling Tech is in this market?" "Oh, I know exactly who you are, Mitchell." I met his eyes directly, watching as the first flicker of recognition crossed his face. "In fact, I know far more about you than you might think." Ashley's sharp intake of breath broke the sudden tension. "Mitchell," she whispered. "Isn't she—" Mitchell's voice cracked slightly, his composure slipping for the first time. You work for Vertex?" I smiled, savoring the moment I'd pictured for months. "Not exactly," I slid my business card across the table, watching as his eyes fixed on the title, Allison Reynolds, CEO, Vertex Properties. I am Vertex Properties. The color drained from Mitchell's face as the implications sank in. His company's entire operational hub, the prestigious address he bragged about in every interview, the building he assumed gave him leverage, all of it belonged to me. That's impossible, he stammered, looking to his legal team for support. The acquisition was... The previous owner was looking for a quiet, private sale, I finished for him. Sometimes, Mitchell, the best deals are the ones no one sees coming. Rather like romance with one's secretary, wouldn't you say? Ashley flinched at that, but I wasn't here to twist the knife. This wasn't about petty revenge. It was about power, properly wielded. I opened the counterproposal, my voice steady and professional. Now, shall we discuss the actual terms of your new lease? I believe you'll find them fair, though perhaps not as preferential as you were hoping for. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the document that would reshape not just Sterling Tech's future, but the power dynamic Mitchell had taken for granted for so long. The real estate empire I had built was about to teach him its first lesson in humility. And this was only the beginning. I recognized them all from their personnel files. Tanya Richards, head of operations, Chris Anderson, chief financial officer, and several others who had climbed the corporate ladder under Mitchell's leadership. Is it true? I overheard one whisper to another. The owner isn't coming? Mitchell's furious. He spent weeks preparing for this negotiation. Their conversation cut off as Mitchell himself appeared in the doorway, Ashley 2 steps behind him. He'd always had a flair for dramatic entrances, timing them for maximum impact. Some things never changed. Well, he announced, surveying the room like a general before battle. Shall we begin? The next 15 minutes were an exercise in restraint as Mitchell's team launched into their carefully prepared presentation. Slides flashed across the screen, each one building their case for preferential treatment. I took detailed notes, not because I needed them, but because it gave me something to focus on besides the delicious irony of the situation. As you can see, Mitchell was saying, pointing to a graph, Sterling Tech's presence has increased, property values in this entire district. We deserve recognition for that contribution. I noticed Ashley watching me intently from her seat beside Mitchell. Perhaps she sensed something familiar, or perhaps she was just trying to read my reactions to their proposals. Either way, her scrutiny added another layer of tension to the room. Logan leaned over, ostensibly to share a document, and whispered, "He's building to the big finish. You ready?" I nodded, almost imperceptibly. The timing had to be perfect. Let Mitchell reach the peak of his presentation before the revelation. Let him think he was in complete control before pulling the rug out from under him. Furthermore, Mitchell continued, his voice carrying that familiar tone of absolute certainty, our market research suggests that comparable properties are leasing at significantly lower rates. We believe our proposal reflects a fair valuation. I glanced at my watch. Almost time. The sunlight streaming through the windows had reached the perfect angle, illuminating the conference room in a way that would make the upcoming moment even more dramatic. Everything was aligned for the revelation that would shatter Mitchell's carefully constructed world. As he approached his conclusion, I caught Ashley studying my profile more intently. Recognition flickered in her eyes, the way one might almost place a face from a dream. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her hand moving to touch Mitchell's arm in warning, but he was too engrossed in his presentation to notice. The stage was set. The players were in position. 3 years of planning were about to culminate, in a moment of perfect clarity. Mitchell Sterling was about to learn that the wife he discarded had become the most powerful person in his professional world. Your market analysis is impressive, I began, my voice carrying the quiet confidence that 3 years of success had built. But there are some significant oversights we should address. Mitchell's presentation had just concluded, and the satisfaction on his face was about to transform into something far less comfortable. Oversights? Mitchell's tone carried that familiar condescension I remembered so well. I assure you our research is thorough. Perhaps if you'd brought the actual owner, they could better appreciate the complexity of— Let's talk about the Wellington development, I interrupted smoothly, referencing a project I knew intimately. Your analysis doesn't account for its impact on local market rates. Mitchell's eyebrows rose slightly. The Wellington development was still largely confidential, or so he thought. What he didn't know was that Vertex Properties had quietly acquired that property last month. The Wellington development is merely speculative at this point, he dismissed, though I caught the flash of uncertainty in his eyes. Our analysis focuses on concrete market factors. Interesting. I opened my laptop, turning it to face the room, because these architectural plans, approved last week, suggest otherwise. The blueprints I displayed caused a ripple of murmurs around the table. The Wellington will add premium office space to this district within 18 months, significantly impacting market dynamics. Ashley shifted uncomfortably beside Mitchell, her eyes narrowing as she studied my face more intently. I could see the gears turning in her mind, trying to place me. Meanwhile, Mitchell's confidence showed its first crack. How did you get access to those plans? He demanded, leaning forward. That information isn't public. Vertex Properties has extensive resources, I replied calmly, enjoying the way his jaw tightened. We make it our business to stay informed about market developments. Speaking of which, shall we discuss your creative interpretation of Sterling? Tech's growth projections? The color drained slightly from Mitchell's face. I pulled out another document, one I'd saved for exactly this moment. Your presentation suggests a 40% growth rate over the next 3 years, yet your own quarterly reports to shareholders project only 15%.